50 years old, 80 years old, more than 100 years old. It's likely I have more trout rods than I can actually use. So which ones am I going to keep and which am I going to throw out? I ask a man who has a lovely collection of young tackle.
With rods nowadays, compared to some of the rods you've got here, these are made a lot lighter, for one.
You dissing my rods?
No, not at all. Sometimes weight is good. These rods are actually heptagonal. They're not actually round, which minimises spine effect on them. So when you make carbon fibre rods, there is like a seam running down through them, and they place that seam in a certain place so it doesn't affect. And I don't understand graphene in a sense. It's talking at atom level, but basically means that they can put less product, less resin in here. Higher Torre carbons equals lighter, and when things are light, when you flex it, it comes back to straight amazingly fast. And whatever the tip does on a fly rod, the line does. So if the tip goes fast, the line goes fast. If the line goes fast, the same as a bullet, you don't have this sort of drop in trajectory. It flies flatter for longer. These are high-end rods. If you were just your average Joe Bloggs looking to get into fly fishing and fishing like little rivers around here, something like an 8-foot 3-weight, a 9-foot 3-weight, or even shorter, 7'6" if it's a very small brook. And you can buy outfits for less than £100 that are really pretty decent.
Your rods are beautiful, your knowledge is impeccable, and there's a kind of garage sale of terrible old fiberglass and cork in the background. Is there any hope for someone like me?
Well, fishing is hope in a sense, isn't it? You know, we sort of sometimes go fishing, be it for salmon and things like that. Nowadays, sometimes we're sort of maybe not even expecting to catch a fish, but the hope that something might happen. And the rods that you've got lined up here against that old log tell a story. And that's quite important to a lot of people. Old rods are like classic cars. You could say, you know, a Jensen Healy is a stupid mode of transport nowadays, but actually it's a beautiful car, styling. It tells a story of the time, and these rods tell a story of that time.
Brilliant. Gerald, let's record an episode of the Antiques Roadshow then. What I'm going to do then is ask you to have a look through my kit and tell me A, if it's any good, or B, whether I should retire the rod, and C, if it is any good, what's it for?
Well, there is certainly a mixed bag there, Charlie. It's very reminiscent of my childhood, some of it.
This is my childhood. You're looking at my childhood. Right, Gerald, you have chosen a hardy smuggler. It's about 7 feet long, 5-weight, little hardy perfect reel. Why did you choose that one?
Well, I think probably because it's the one you said that you use for trout fishing now, and I really like some of the fishing heritage, you know, with sort of hardy, and you know, you've got a reel here that has stood the test of time. You know, it isn't just a couple of decades old, the design. There's something very, very British about this, and it's like when you pick up a nice shotgun and you're just sort of intrigued by the craftsmanship of it all and wonder the adventures that it's been on. But also, you know, the quality of the rod, this lovely little stubby handle, fluor grade cork, it all packs down to this size here. And you know, modern rods, yeah, okay, they cast very differently, and they will cast really sharp, tight loops. This rod is like harking back to an older car. It needs a different input, and as long as you adjust your casting to match the rod, there's nothing wrong with this. You can catch, you know, wherever you go. You know, I'd be happy to fish this. This would be great.
You've chosen a rod you think I can live without?
Yep, I definitely do. I think this one would be nice on a pub wall or something.
This is my childhood you're looking at there.
Yeah, sorry, Charlie. Yeah, you can see you can still cast it out a long way. There's no leader at all on this, so it is hideously clunky, and it's lost some of the tip of the rod, and it's got on here a bit of copper wire that looks like it's been tied on with a bit of your mum's cotton or something like that. So it's very difficult to get feeling on this, and it's very wobbly as you cast, and when rods reverberate it sends the wiggles down the line, so you have to have super good damping with this, and you can't really feel anything. It wouldn't be enjoyable to catch small trout on this, but you could still catch fish. We could go salmon fishing with this and catch a salmon. We could go trout fishing and catch trout. We could go mackerel fishing. We could go bass fishing. It will still work. It's just very unpleasurable. And the reel is, keep trying to tighten it up a bit. That's sort of there. There's no drag on the reel, and you can't palm the reel here. You can see it's like internal. And when there's no drag, and you give it one of those, and you can see it all bunching up. So you caught a big fish, very difficult, because there's sort of, you almost have to put your hand inside to slow it down. So yeah, a nice bit of your childhood, Charlie.
Well said. So top tackle, Taunton, circa 1978. It was the first fly rod I owned, the one before the smuggler you just picked up.
Okay.
Green and red, I mean, great 70s colours, you know.
Yeah, oh yeah. I started on something similar, an Abu, which looked really, really similar to that. And my sort of childhood fly fishing mentor was ex-army. He was a postman. He was a proper chap, and he'd take me fishing. And to begin with, I just used to get a piece of wool. Everyone around was catching trout, and I'd be flailing around with a bit of wool and this. And yeah, it took me a few goes to get competent enough to have a flight.
One of the many, many years that the hardy smuggler was out of action because I'd broken a section and shut it in a door or stepped on it or something, I bought this for 35 quid. It's a Shakespeare answer to the smuggler, circa 1990. You say you like it?
Oh, it's a fantastic. You can see how thin the blank is. It's really made for, you know, small trout streams. It's purposeful. These are either Fuji rings or copies of Fuji rings. The whippings are really nice on it. It's got this sort of ground blank matte finish. Absolutely lovely. The quality of the reel seat's okay, wooden insert, a copy I would say of a Fuji reel seat, but you've got one of my favourite reels, and this is a Scientific Anglers Systems 2. This is a 5.6, very small for the size. This is made by BFR in Falmouth in Cornwall, and as a proud Cornishman, that's the best reel. It's lovely, and if you have a look on the inside of these, they've got this little disc brake, just like a car. There's the little pad, here's your disc brake, here's your little clicker. You know, it's beautiful. It's like a shotgun inside. Very basic, bulletproof, you can't go wrong. And if you see these on eBay, snap them up, because I think in the next 20 years, these are going to be very difficult to come by.
They still make them?
No, they haven't been made for you. But you can still find these almost as new on eBay, sometimes for as little as 40 quid.
Now, why do you like this setup, particularly in terms of fishing it? What is good about it?
If you were catching small fish, it'd be really fun to catch on this. It's got the balance between finesse and still enough, you know, the wind's blowing straight into us. And again, Charlie, you haven't got a tapered leader on here, so it lands like a bag of nails. But if we sorted out the tapered leader on the front, it would just land so beautifully, and it gives you so much feel. It's not designed to cast a long way, short little casts. And that, when we were talking earlier about line weights and heavy lines, fast action rods nowadays require more line. And if you looked at a 5-weight fast action rod now, it'd almost be the equivalent of an old-fashioned 8-weight. This is beautiful. You see how thin that blank is. It loads really easily, and a nice deft touch sends out really nice loops. The line follows the rod tip, so if you've got a very soft tip of the rod, it's easy to bend it. So if you were doing casts, so say we've got a straight line here, if we had a river here that was flowing that way and in the middle was faster, we could put a little mend in it out there, so that we've got this little bow here, so the centre of the river is going to take that out before it moves our dry fly. And because the rod tip, it's very easy to control, and there's a bit of movement in that rod tip, they're easy to do. And if you were to do, you're casting downstream, you've walked past a section and a fish rises, and if you wanted to do like a wiggle cast, it's really easy, because it's easy to wiggle the tip of the rod. If we were casting downstream, that's going to give us a couple of seconds of drag-free drift, and it's just easy to do with this rod.
I think this whole setup cost me maybe just under, maybe just over 100 quid.
Yeah.
If you were going to get a rod from a rod company today, that does the same kind of thing.
You could pay £1,000 for a rod like this now.
You're kidding.
Nope. So something like a Sage LL, basically it's harking back to a time when fly rods were like this. So they've made it like a dark brown, sort of very retro looking, lovely, light, sparkly rod to cast. But this is what it was sort of based on.
To end this romp around the rod box, let's let Gerald go back to his own toys. This is a proper rod.
Well, I don't know about a proper rod, but this is a modern rod. This is top of the range in loop. It's a medium fast action rod. It's super light. It's got loads of high-end components on it. This reel is a sort of top-end reel, and the difference between this and some of the ones we've looked at, this has got like a carbon matrix drag, so carbon plates pressing together and adjusted by this drag knob here, and it wouldn't matter if you tied it to a moped and took off, you're not going to burn the drag out on it. Trout fishing, which this is designed for, we only have very, very light settings anyway, but you can see the inertia to sort of, it doesn't change. The drag is completely constant, so great at protecting light tippets. And you can also see on more modern reels the arbor is larger, so you get quicker retrieve, but also the line isn't so bunched up. On little tiny hardies, they're like winding line on a cotton reel, so if you have a lot of line out, you normally have to stretch it a little bit, where this here doesn't tend to kink the line. It's super, super light, and it feels like a wand in your hand. And when I stop the rod, the tip goes doo, doo, and that's tip speed relates to line speed. And we talked about that line speed. The faster the line speed, the further you're going to go, the less drop. You can cast under things more accurately because the deviation of the tip isn't going so far, where if you punch like a fiberglass rod, you end up with a tailing loop, or it goes up into the trees. With this one here, it just fires it in underneath bushes and things like that. So yeah, it's a nice rod. And the input on this one here, a bit like that little rod we tried earlier, you don't have to put, just if you're spending £1,000 on a rod, get that rod to optimize its best performance, and that's the smoothness. Pull forward, stop, and you can see I'm hardly putting any energy into it, and that line's just flying out. And if I get a tiny bit more out and we cast a little bit more distance, you can see how straight that line is, how effortless it all is.
Thank you, Gerald. I learnt a lot from that little outing. I'm certainly not going to throw away my new £1,000 Shakespeare. And of course I'm going to keep my old East Anglian Rod Company rod. Gerald guides, he instructs. You can find him online. Search for the Devon School of Flyfishing.